Oh, there's three people here. So,
Already, huh?
hello. Yeah, right. Oh, they got this stupid thing on here on my chat. I can't see it because it says share your referral link on it. I don't know how to get it off there. It blocks my whole stupid chat. So,
Oh, it's on your phone or what?
yeah, it's on my phone on my chat. It's got my screen that shows us here, and then over beside it, it's got the chat. Well, above the chat box is a little another box that says share your referral link, and it covers the chat. So it's fun. But
Yeah.
okay, we've got three people in here. Does that include us?
I don't know. Maybe could be. I've never been able really to figure it out.
Yeah.
Not that I've ever really cared when I started.
Mhm.
So I, you know,
Yep.
Smiley's here.
Yeah, I was just about to say hi. Hi, Uncle Smiley. He's always so nice to me. He says hi to me, and well, everybody says hi to me and stuff. But he always makes him and who else is it? Crap, I can't even think of who it is now. They're gonna kill me. Anyway, there's somebody else that's always really exuberant when they say hello, and it always makes me feel special. I'm like, oh, you really like to see me. But yeah, so we got four people in here now. We're moving on up in the world,
Yeah,
and then down to three again. I'm
yeah,
scared.
it'll be in and out, but no, I wouldn't worry too much about it.
I'm not. Actually, the funny thing is, I get worse scared and worse like whenever there are more people in it. So give them a few minutes, and I'll start asking my invasive questions and grilling you.
That's fine. I mean, I kind of know what I got myself into. I saw when you did with funk, so yeah, it is what it is. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm pretty much an open book.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the way I am too. I'm really bad about if I do something I don't want people to know. I end up telling on myself anyway. I'm like, I did da 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 da, or I'm not good at hiding that. I would go to jail if I ever broke the law. Like I would, because I'd be like, I did it. I'm sorry. Yeah. So anyway, but I figured we would talk about like different ways to save money, like that things you do that are DIY or save money or anything like that. I mean, so and then we can just see what the chat says and that kind of thing. So and just go wherever it takes us.
Yeah, I think and when it comes to saving money, it really boils down to where you live. And the reason I say that is because I've managed to save a lot of money because I do a lot of collecting out in nature. That's the one biggest, because one of the biggest expenses besides equipment, one of the biggest expenses are like paying for rocks, which I never really understood. That never ever made sense to me.
That doesn't
paying
right
for rocks, paying for branches or limbs, or that just, to me, even to this day, it doesn't register. It's like, why are you paying for that stuff? And so one of the things that I always found very interesting is when especially because I went away from the hobby for a lot of years.
Yeah.
And I came back maybe about 10 years ago, roughly around there is when I came back. Started watching everything that had to do with aquarium related stuff. And a lot of it was what brought me back, or what kind of caught my interest, was the aquascaping. And you would hear these people that were buying all these branches, and they're costing you $100 for this little branch. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And then there would be this whole agenda that would go around saying, don't ever get anything from nature and put it in your aquarium. And immediately to me, that was kind of like, what the hell are you talking about? Where did you get the stuff that you're selling me from? If it wasn't from nature. But I think a lot of that advice really adheres to people that live more like in urban settings.
Yeah.
Where everything is touched by humanity. Even if you have a natural park in the middle of the area, it could potentially have been contaminated because of natural, what goes on around it.
Right.
But even then, you can still wash it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's so, because a lot of that stuff falls into the waterways that are there anyways. And, I know it's different because a lot of those bodies of water that are in like urban settings or whatever are turning over because they'll have something that flows through it. But if it's a lake, I mean, it's just, what is it? The amount of water is going to dilute whatever is in there. And that's it. But I've never, luckily, knocking on wood, have ever had an issue with grabbing something, I know what the fear is, that it might have some herbicides on it,
Yeah.
Stuff like that. But in a park, I don't know too many cities that'll, you know, put any kind of herbicides out in the parks or on their trees or anything like that, unless there's like some sort of a invasive species that they're trying to get rid of. But
Like a big tree
you
or
know,
something that's spreading stuff.
yeah,
Hi,
yeah.
Asai.
So, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I know. I was just saying hi to Asaya. That's all. You're good.
Yeah, so this, and I sort of get it, but I don't get it. The whole idea that you have to spend a lot of money to keep fish
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense to me. Other than paying for the fish, where I could see if you're trying to get something that is not found here immediately, that's got to be imported.
Right.
That's where it makes a little bit of sense. But even if you really, really wanted to keep some sort of aquarium or a container with fish,
Yeah.
you can go to most bodies of water and you'll find at least like some mosquito fish,
Right.
some wild guppies, something like that,
You'll find
without
something.
really having to spend any money and still be able to keep something.
Yep. For sure. Uncle Smiley says collecting fish and hardscape and making your own tank stands are the biggest ways to save money. I agree.
Mhm.
And using things like different stands other than aquarium stands, that's a big one too.
Yeah,
That's
well, I started out by using old dressers that because I started out with a 20-gallon.
yeah,
So most 20 gallons or 10 gallons, 20 gallons or smaller,
you're right.
I would even say a 29-gallon, you can sit on top of a piece of furniture you have at home.
I've got a 29-gallon on a book stand,
Yeah.
on a bookshelf.
So it's really interesting, because I think if you're really wanting to keep fish
Mhm.
because you really want to enjoy it, you really don't have to spend any money. I guarantee you, if you walk around the house, there's going to be a plastic tote container that's empty, that's big enough to be able to house this stuff.
You can find
One of
something.
the things, one of the things that really opened up my eyes to the whole way that I keep fish is I started watching videos from fish keepers in other parts of the world outside of the United States.
Yeah.
I was watching, how people were keeping fish in the Dominican Republic,
Mhm.
how people were keeping fish in Mexico, South America. You go to Asia and you start looking at some of these places. I was seeing people taking the inserts of a refrigerator, the insulation, laying it on the ground, filling it up with water up into the point wherever the hose would be up, because they
Yeah.
wouldn't even plug the hose, and that became a place where they were able to either reproduce, keep whatever it is you wanted to do,
Right.
to cultivate, whether it was plants, whether it was fish, whether it, all this stuff. So the reality, and they weren't running filters.
Yeah.
That's where I started looking at that. That's the one thing that immediately drew my attention, is because when I started coming back into this, is like, no, you need to have a filter that'll turn this many gallons of water
Oh,
per
right.
hour, or you're gonna,
10 times per
kill the
hour.
fish. Yeah. But I didn't know any better. Because from the late 80s, early 90s, this is the last time I had kept fish.
Wow.
There wasn't a lot of information, and at the time, my filter was undergravel filter. That's all it was. I mean, I know there was the plastic acrylic box filters, and maybe sponge filters were available, but undergravel was the cheapest type of filtration you can use, and everybody was pretty much using it. I mean,
Right.
you went to your local fish store, and that's what they were using. That was the filtration they were using, undergravel filter. So by the time I left, I guess there must have been a really big evolution on what filtration was being used and stuff like that. Because when I came back, I didn't know a canister was a thing, and it seemed like every other YouTube channel that I was watching, that was, oh, you gotta use a canister filter. That's the best filtration. It seemed like I hit the trend in the hobby where everybody was talking about, you have to use canister filters,
Yeah.
or else you're an evil person if you don't use canister filters, and you're
Yeah.
gonna
Your
kill your
thing's not
fish.
clean enough. It's disgusting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I didn't know any better coming in. I was like, oh, okay. So, being a newbie, I started looking to see where I could find a counter filter to buy it. And so I started falling into that trap and forgetting everything I had learned up until the time that I had left the hobby, but it had changed so much. When I left, natural plants were not a thing. Uh, I mean, I didn't see any aquariums. There might have been a very few selections of stuff that might have been around,
Yeah.
but it was most of the. I think Anacris might have been the one plant that you could find consistently at the fish stores, and in my thinking back then, they had plastic versions of it that were better, and you didn't have to worry about anything. Let's just put it in the aquarium.
That's how I started
So,
with fish keeping. It's like no plants, no plants. I can't do it.
yep.
uh,
And
sorry.
and then back then, we didn't have this. We didn't have YouTube. We didn't have. I think the internet. I don't even know if the internet was around. I know computers were around. I think AOL was starting to make place, but you couldn't really, other than being part of forums,
Right.
you really couldn't look at pictures. You really, because it would just take forever to download.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And then if somebody got called on the phone, you were in trouble because you're done
Mhm.
another hour to get connected again.
Yeah, people get upset nowadays because it takes an image or a stream will pause. If you wanted to see a picture, it'd take you all day. You set it, walk away, come back, and wait for the picture to
Right.
download like a day later.
And then if, like I said, if somebody used that phone line, you were screwed. Hey Peter. Hi Kristen. That's my girl Kristen. And Mickey came in. Fish
Nice
family.
to meet you guys. Thanks for being here. Yeah, like I said, so to save money in this hobby, it's really a matter of choice. If you
Mhm.
really want to keep fish, you can keep fish for very little money.
Yep.
Um,
Well,
almost
I'm thinking
almost
back.
for no money other than the cost of the fish.
Yeah.
And and in reality is you'll probably find locally in any of the groups that are available, whether it's like something like Facebook or something, you'll find somebody that's trying to get rid of fish.
And
So
local fish clubs too. They're all over
yeah,
the place. Oh, hi, Rudsy. Um, that's like me. I mean, I'm kind of proof positive that you can. I've had people say, "There's no way that you have that many tanks and you're as poor as you say you are," because it's an expensive hobby. And I'm like, yeah, but hustle. Get out there, and do something. Talk to people. Like, do something. Find something. It's drive down the road. You can find a tank on the side of the road. I've gotten at least 2/3 of my tanks. Well, maybe half my tank, a little more than half. But I'm going to be generous. Um, I have gotten free. My 90-gallon bow front, I got free. One of my 55 gallons got free. My 75, 48, like all of them. The ones I haven't gotten free, I paid like less than $1 per gallon for, and I come with a bunch of different stuff. A lot of times even fish, and I've never paid full price for any of my tanks. And most of the equipment, I offset the cost by selling and getting store credit. So
yeah.
it takes almost nothing for me to take care of these fish. So
Well, the thing
even
is,
though you've got so many tanks.
it's like everything else. If you're willing to work, if you're willing to put in work, you're gonna find stuff. And what I mean by that,
Right.
um, by work could be if you scour through all the social media places that you can find where like for example, marketplace. I don't know if Craigslist is still a thing.
Sort of.
But
I think.
you know, if you really look around, you're gonna find stuff for free.
Yeah.
There's always going to be somebody that wants to get rid of a 10-gallon, 20-gallon tank. It's not
Yep.
very hard. It's not very hard to do that. It's not very hard to find large aquariums where people want to get rid of them because they don't want to go through the whole deal of resealing a big aquarium.
Yep.
So,
Or they're moving, don't
like I
want to take
said,
it with them.
yeah, that's the other thing. You see, like where I live, it's a military town because we have a big Marine Corps base. It's a Marine Corps air station.
You
So
got a
it's
lot
not
of them.
uncommon. Yeah, it's not uncommon to have a big turnover of of people moving in and out. And I was looking for a video that I have. That's why I'm kind of trying to multitask. where picking up stuff for free is not uncommon, but you got to stay on top of it. It's one of those things where if you're constantly looking are on the lookout for the stuff, you're going to find it.
Oh yeah.
And I get it. Big aquariums, a lot of people don't want to go and tear down the silicone and reseal it and stuff like that. And I know it can be a little bit intimidating if you've never done it before, because I know that's where I was at. But there's a lot of good resources available on YouTube. Again, that's where the advent of YouTube really helps.
Yeah.
And you can go in there and be able to guide yourself through how to do it. And if you're not intimidated by a little bit of a work, you can accomplish it relatively inexpensive. Although I have to admit, silicone is getting a lot more expensive than what it used to be. I
know. But I did find some that it's actually aquarium made, and it's like you get 2 of the tubes for like the big caulking tubes for like $19.
Yeah, well, it used to be. You see, that was the other thing. You could buy that G&E silicone tube. If you got it in the clear, you can buy it clear or black. But that was the other thing. This is again where going back to some of the myths that exist in the fish keeping, or I would call them even gatekeeping, where they're always trying to scare you. Oh, don't use this because it's going to kill your fish. Like
the collecting.
Yeah, but in a way, they were doing it to cover their butt. I understand that, because the last thing you want is somebody doing something like that and then coming back on you and saying, "Hey, well, you're the one that told me to do this."
Right.
So that's why they were doing it. But unless it had some sort of fungicide on the silicone, you could pretty much use anything off the shelves, because it's what believe it or not, that's what a lot of the manufacturers are using. Now they've kind of rebranded it, and they'll sell you exclusively aquarium safe silicone, which is really no different.
No.
But the problem now is aquarium silicone used to be a lot more expensive, where one tube of regular G&E would cost you maybe $3, and then a tube of the aquarium silicone might have been like $7 or $8. Well, it's gotten to the point now where the other stuff costs as much as the aquarium stuff. So for, I guess, peace of mind, if it's costing you nearly the same amount, just buy the aquarium stuff.
Right. That way you have a guarantee.
Yeah, at least you have peace of mind to know that, okay, this is, designed for this. And so, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say the aquarium stuff that I found was like literally within pennies of the GE stuff, which is the cheapest stuff to get, the silicone to get. But if you just look on the label and it says 100% silicone, no additive, then you're good.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. And I think what happened was, because during the pandemic, the industry in the hobby, the fish keeping hobby, really blew up. And it became where people were looking for the aquarium silicone. And that's why, that's kind of where you saw, okay, they started, because it used to be pretty hard to find. You really couldn't find a whole lot of it. And especially in bulk, you would find the little hand tubes and stuff like that. But now you could actually find it in the big tubes that where you use the gun to use them. Yeah. And it's gotten to a point now where the price, there's no difference. Just might as well get the one that's for aquariums.
Exactly.
But yeah,
Sushi came in, and Aquaballs came in. Aquaballs said something about there's homeless people. I missed the comment, like it went up, so I can't read it, but it says that
from LRV. Yeah, that is so interesting. But you know what? Again, that goes back to what I was saying about watching outside of the United States, other fish keepers or fish farms, if you want to call it that. I one of the ones that really opened my eyes to this was Dexter's World, because he's like the biggest international YouTuber.
Oh wow!
There's him, and then there's another gentleman from the DR, who actually I found him because they had a news article on him on Univision, which is the Spanish-speaking news network in the United States, and the guy was breeding bettas.
Oh wow!
And I found his channel, started following him. Again, here's another guy that he started out with plastic rain barrels that were cut at the half, and that's what he was breeding. Then eventually he bought himself a little breeding facility, a fish farm. And again, that's where you start learning that if there's biological filtration, that is primarily what does the filtration in your aquariums.
Yep.
Everything else is just it's mechanical, whether
It's
it's a
just
sponge
gravy.
filter. Yeah, it's just you're all you're doing at that point is pulling out particulates. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. So, but that was the other thing that I wanted to say is you can do it at a low budget, but you got to understand the basics. And
Yeah.
if you understand filtration, then you can do anything.
Yeah.
If you understand how filtration works, because that's going to be what Lucas is talking about when he goes filterless. And I hate that term, but
Yeah. He's not
everybody
really
knows what I'm
filterless.
talking about because there is no such thing as a filterless aquarium because of biological filtration.
Correct.
But it's a way to have people understand that you don't need to have a mechanized or air driven piece of equipment to create filtration.
Right.
The filtration is within your aquarium, within the surfaces of your aquarium, the substrate, the plants, everything that's contained within that container is what's going to do your filtration.
Yeah, it's all over your glass, on your substrate, and it's everywhere. And that's how you can get away with the filterless. Now, of course, when I first started, when everybody first starts, they don't realize that there's bacteria, unless you're a microbiologist, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
That there's
We're nerds,
bacteria
but we're not
jump up,
that big of a
right?
nerds.
Well, I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. I actually went to school for animal science, so I was getting there. But yeah, so like you don't know that there's bacteria in there that's changing things over and filtering stuff. All you think is that, oh, it's getting the trash out of the water. So you think you have to have something like that. But you just keep and you learn the basics and you'll learn things. Like you said, it makes it easier to be able to cut costs because you know where you can cut costs.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing is that I'm finding, and this is something that I've just recently, I know it's been around for a while, but I personally have just recently started doing it, is
Yeah.
that aquatic plants are aquatic. They're not, other than Vallisneria, I think is the only plant that actually grows 100% underwater. The minute
Yeah.
it can grow immersed. That, and I think there's a few like duckweed, not duckweed, hornwort. Hornwort are plants that have to be, immersed.
Yeah.
No, submersed. And but other than that, all the other plants in the hobby, they grow out of the water at some form or another. Then they convert, and the reason is because in the regions that they grow in are floodplains.
Right.
So during the rain season, these areas will get flooded, and the plants are forced to convert over to a submerged form of it.
Yep.
And so if you start learning about that, you can go and even walk around nature and pick up on something like mosses. Mosses is a perfect example of that. That if you live in an area where there's enough moisture and there's moss out in nature, you never have to buy moss ever again. But again, it goes back to, are you willing to do some work? And what do I mean by work? Work doesn't always relate to physical work. It's like what you did. Read an entire encyclopedia. If you're willing to dedicate time to read, to learn, to scour the internet for information, you're going to find that there's a lot of plants out in nature you can go out and pluck out of there, bring them over to your aquarium, and transition them over to become, aquarium plants.
Right.
And a lot of the times you won't even recognize them because their form as immersed plants is totally different than when you submerge them.
Yeah, that's why I don't do out of nature, because I'm not very good with plants, like identifying them and stuff like that. So like taking them out of nature, I couldn't do that because I don't know how to identify what, you know what I mean? So I don't mess with doing that part. Now wood and rocks and all that stuff, I'm always picking them up from outside and bringing them in. But plants, I would never know how to harvest them sustainably, like to be able to put in my aquarium where they would grow, because I wouldn't know how to take care of them, whatever. So
yeah. So the other thing is you can take a lot of house plants, like what you're seeing up here. This is something that is newer to me. I know it's been around again during the pandemic. A lot of people got into houseplants. That the people that didn't get into fish is everybody found because we were forced to stay indoors and you wanted something to keep you busy. So everybody found these different new hobbies, if you want to call it that. And houseplants was a big thing of that. Well, there's a I hate because I always forget his name. I think it's Plant Love Aquatics or something like that, or something like that. Yeah, I started watching his channel, and I started seeing that he was doing some of that. But I happen to have also a good friend of mine. His name's Steve, Planet Warrior Tanks, which he frustrates me the hell because he could be so great at doing this whole YouTube because the guy is brilliant when it comes to plants. And he's the one, he goes, "Oh, you dummy, that's real easy. All you got to do is take a trimming, you insert it in water, you let the roots to grow out, and then, then you can have a plant like that." He goes, you can almost do it with almost all house plants.
Yep.
So that's the other thing. If you can't go out and buy aquatic plants, you can more than likely find somebody that has a little piece of pothos that they can give you a little trimming.
Yep.
And that'll get you right on your way to have some success with plants too. They'll be out of the tank, but it'll accomplish the same thing you're trying to do with aquatic plants.
Well, I've got an inch plant over here, a polka dot plant over here, and a philodendron over here. Now my inch plant, they're all supposed to not be able to survive underwater except for their roots, which I don't have them underwater on purpose. But some of them, like the philodendron, has grown leaves out underneath the water, and they're surviving just fine. The inch plant, half of it has sunk and grown into the water. So, I mean, I started with a cutting of it about that big, and it is now like it's a bundle. Like, yeah, it's a big chunk of plant, and half of it's down in the water. And so, like, yeah, it doesn't, anything that you can grow root in water can be grown in your tank. It's really cool. So, and it helps with the nitrates. And if you can't, like with my my South American cichlid tank, it's hard to have plants in there because they like to dig everything up.
Yeah.
So having something like that sticking out the top is really helpful with nitrate stuff. So, hi, Chris. Oh, hey, Henry. Oh, shit, people come in. I didn't even notice. I'm not paying attention. Hey, Jose. Jose's here too. And I think that's everybody. Oh, anyway. But yeah, so one of the good ways to save money is, like you were saying, with secondhand and used stuff. That's a good way to do it. And
yeah,
like
you can go to like a local Goodwill or the one of those is you just drive down your street or walk down your street.
Yep.
You'll be amazed how much stuff you can find that people are putting out in the front lawn that they don't want anymore.
They're just tired of it. Like, stick it out there. Like, somebody take it.
Yeah, but even nowadays, not because I'm trying to plug Facebook, but that really is a good resource. If you go use the marketplace stuff, you're going to find a lot of stuff that's available there, and not necessarily you always found under like the aquatic sites, because they'll break it up. If you go look like some will advertise like garage sales or estate sales, look at those, because you'll be surprised what you find in some of these sales. They're trying to sell furniture and stuff, but your eye, if you're looking for an aquarium, you're gonna look at the picture and go, "Oh, what's that glass box over there?" and more than likely you'll go there. That's not something that they're going to be pretty knowledgeable of how much it costs. You could almost probably get it for free for $1 because they just want it out.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I've got a lot of mine that way. Like I've gotten a lot of fish that way too. Just like people are like, "I got to get rid of the whole setup. Will you take the fish too?" And I'm like, "Sure." I mean, it's not like I don't have room for them, So.
Well, I've got a tilapia that I got precisely with that. A guy came over, he bought some fish for me, and he tells me, "Hey, you know what?" He goes, "I have a 10-gallon tank that that I don't need anymore. Are you interested in it?" And I said, "Sure." I mean, I always find a use for aquarium, whether it's I use it or I give it to somebody. There's always an opportunity for somebody to take up an aquarium.
Yeah, don't turn down.
Well, unbeknownst to me, that aquarium was coming in with a fish, a tilapia that he was trying to get rid of.
Oh no, aren't those huge?
Yeah, they are, and it's getting pretty big. I have them right now in a 150 with my angelfish, and he's not harassing them because there's a lot more angelfish in there than him.
Right.
But it's going to get to a point where it might become a problem. If I see him trying to chase after their trailers, thinking that it's food, then I'm gonna have to find something to do with that fish. It might become fish tacos or something. I don't know.
I had to get rid of my red hump Geo the other day. I had 2 of them, but the bigger one, I called them Genghis and Khan. And Genghis was the bigger one. And now when he was smaller, he and my largest electric blue Akara Juvie were like, they were thick as thieves. I have a video on my channel of them playing together, and they were like constantly with each other. But lately, like the past 2 weeks, he had been chasing everybody. It's mostly the little red hump geo. Genghis was chasing him a lot, but then he started chasing everybody, including the one that was like his buddy. And they were going like all kinds of stuff. Then he attacked my Corys.
Oh.
Like, no. You don't F with my Corys. You don't touch my Corys. You don't mess with mama's paycheck. You don't do that. Because my Corys are what brings me in the biggest money and the biggest store credit and stuff. So I'm not about to have that ruined. So.
Well, and here's the other thing too. There's a way for you to make a little bit of a money, and it's a little bit. This whole idea that you're going to become this successful breeder and all of a sudden be able to change your life and make life-changing money. It's not really true,
No.
But it is true that it could subsidize your hobby.
Yeah.
So what I was getting at, say you come across, you really want to do this, and your goal is eventually you want to have this big aquarium. Well, maybe it's not going to happen overnight where you come across this big aquarium, but you can work towards that. Right. You can start off with a bucket, a 5-gallon bucket. Most of us will have a bucket or a little plastic tote where you were storing some stuff.
Right.
Get your hands on some guppies. And the reason I say guppies because guppies are always going to sell. You're not going to sell them for a lot of money. You're not this the whole idea that you're going to be able to reproduce a single fish and it's going to generate hundreds of dollars on that fish.
No.
It happens, but not very often.
Yeah.
But you can make sense. Like 50 cents, 75 cents, $1 on just regular common fish. And the reason I would say those is because there's a reason why every single fish store sells those fish because they're the most popular in the hobby. So if your idea is to try to turn a little bit of a profit, is start off with some libraries. Libraries are pretty easy to come by. You can go to a Pets, one of the big box stores, and pick them up for about $4, you know, in that range. Well, you could turn around, reproduce those relatively easy, and sell them for $1 or $2. And if you are lucky enough where you have a local fish store, well, you start working on trying to develop a relationship with them. Mm-hmm. People are always looking for feeders. You might not like that idea. That your fish are going to become feeders. But if your goal is to make money, then who gives a shit? You know.
Just don't ask them what they're doing with them.
Yeah, just know that you have a place where they're going to be able to take them off your hands. You're going to be able to save up some of that money to eventually be able to get you what it is you want. But it's going to take time too, though. But so. Again, if you're willing to do the work, there's a way where you don't have to spend a lot of money to get going. Think of all the big YouTube channels that are out there that have businesses nowadays. Yeah. They didn't start off with that business. They started off with keeping an aquarium. They learned that they could reproduce a couple of the fish that they were keeping. They became either involved with fish clubs or established a relationship with a business where they were able to turn some of that stuff over. You could sell some of the stuff locally. I mean, they're always hustling and finding a way for the next big thing. And that's just it. It's if you're really, ambitious and trying to do something with this, you will get there, but it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to be something that is going to be an immediate turnaround.
I started with a 5.5 gallon tank and like 7 fish that were supposed to go in there that I rescued from the neighbor, and then built up from there. And then suddenly one day I had, I think, 3 tanks at the time. I turned the 5.5 gallon 2 shrimp tank. I had a 20 long, and then I just set up a 55 for my tetras and my cories. And all of a sudden one day there were eggs on the glass. I didn't know where they came from. I didn't know what was going on. My cories had bred. So that was my introduction to breeding, and that's how I started breeding. And they have been my biggest moneymaker since then. But it was accidental. I had no intention on breeding. I didn't know anything about it. I had no clue what was going on. Yeah. and it was a total accident. So that's what got me started in it. So I can only imagine that these people that have these big stores and stuff now could have started the same way. Little. They start little, unless you've got a lot of money to put into something, and which that defeats the purpose of saving money, right?
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. It's like I remember part of what I'm trying to do here is and why I have so many aquariums is that I am reproducing fish. And I fell into that trap where I said, "Oh, I want to buy cuz I like live bears. That's really what I like." And I thought, "Oh, I'm going to get some real fancy guppy lines and be able to breed these and then turn around selling here locally cuz nobody's selling those."
Right.
Well, to my surprise, people like guppies, but
Yeah.
they could care less of whether they're a straight line or not. They want color. They
Yeah, they
just
want
want
pretty.
beautiful color.
Yep.
And I quickly realized it didn't matter if I had straight lines and trying to sell them. I mean, you're gonna get a couple of more not advanced hobbyists, but more selective hobbyists that'll probably seek those out. But those are going to be more far and few in between. You're going to
Yeah.
have more people that are going to want the nice, beautiful colors,
Right.
and they're not worried about trying to reproduce them and sell them. They just
No.
want to have their aquarium with a bunch of beautiful colors in them.
Yep.
And that was an eye opener to me. And I said, this whole idea of me trying to separate colors that culling fish.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out that my cold tank is my biggest moneymaker
The mud
because
guppies.
I'm pulling mud guppies. Mud guppies really sell well, and I sell them for about $2 a piece.
Nice.
Because if you go to the big box store, it's going to cost you twice as much.
Yeah.
And
My
and
elephants, they're like $2, I think, or 2 or 3.
yeah,
Yeah.
and the thing is, they go look at the ones at the big box store that we have here, and they're all sick. They look like they're on death's door, and so they're getting a hell of a deal because they know at least the ones they're picking up from me, they're going to survive. They're going to be
Right.
healthy, and so a lot of the times we get caught up in this whole idea. Oh, if I can sell a good strain of guppies for 25-30 bucks a trio or a pair.
Yeah.
Well, you're not going to sell a whole lot of those. You're
No.
probably going to sell a lot more of just you throw them all. I have this, I keep pointing to it, but is this aquarium down here? I just throw all my coals in there
Yeah.
and they come in, they look at all this, they think it's, oh, that's cool, it's fascinating, but that's where they always buy out of.
Yeah.
That's the tank that they're, oh, I want this and this and this, and they get to pick whatever they want, and they're happy, and I'm happy because they took the fish home. So that was a real eye opener for me because I was thinking, yeah, I'm going to bring in, this line of guppies, and I'm going to breed these, and
Yeah.
and I'm going to, and I'm going to breed these mollies that I think are really cool, and I'm going to. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Just breed whatever you have, and you're going to find. Come to find out, the local fish store that I work with, it's not a local, well, not really local. It's 3.5 hours away from me. But every time I drive up to Phoenix, I call my friend at the store and I say, hey, do you need just fancy guppies? He goes, yes, because he can't get his hands on good fancy guppies.
Yeah.
So he'll buy an entire tank for me. He says, bring them all.
Nice.
And I'll sort them out in multiples of 20 because it's a lot easier to count them. And I could turn that in, and I'd take store credit because I'll buy the fish. Like the last time I went up there, I got some fork-tail fricatas. I picked up some I picked up some tiger limias. I picked up some. What was the other thing? There was another couple of fish. I basically turned around and picked up some. Oh, the Bosmani rainbows.
Yeah.
And I think that was it. And some plants that I got from him. So, now I'm getting stuff that I kind of like, that I really think it's cool. And if I can get it to reproduce, he'll buy it from me.
Yeah.
And it's not, I might sell 1 or 2 of those fish here locally, but the reality is I'm trying to reproduce this stuff for him. Because he said, if anything you can produce from these fish, he goes, I'll buy them from you because I can't keep it stocked. Now, with the way the economy is right now, and what's going on with all the importing and exporting of stuff, it's becoming more of a big deal where they're going to want to be able to source stuff locally because it's going to be a lot cheaper than trying to bring it in from overseas.
Yeah, for sure.
It's funny because now what's really, and this is a conversation that I had with them, the common fish, your live bears, your goldfish and stuff like that, they're willing to buy that. Where before they probably wouldn't buy it from you because of it was just a lot cheaper to import it. Now
Yeah.
it's becoming where it's like, oh, it's cheaper to buy it locally.
Yeah.
And you're going to get paid a little bit more money than that we're willing, because they know they're going to save money on it on the long term. So it's
Right.
really interesting. Just talking to him, knowing him as a fish store owner, then having those conversations where it's like, oh, okay, so you stick
Right.
around and do this for long enough. Somebody like George Aquaballs that's been doing this for years,
Yeah.
he can tell you. I mean, he probably has stories that he can share that where some of this stuff relates. It's
Yeah.
common fish are common fish for a reason.
Yeah.
Angelfish. The stuff you go look at your big box stores. If they're selling it, it's because it's a high volume item.
Right. And just because it's cheap doesn't mean it won't make you money. That's like I was telling you with my cories, my albino cories. They're prolific. They breed like crazy. I seem to always have some on hand, no matter what, unless I just purposely don't take the eggs. But but only get. I think they sell my short fins for about $5 each, 5 or 6, and I get 2 or 3 depending on what they sell them for. Now my long fins they sell for I think 7 or 8, and I got lucky though. I've got a really good LFS, and they're decent. They ever since I went in there. Now, when I started, they were giving me bare minimum prices, and I mean they were fair, but they were just not giving me a lot. Now I can go in there and I get deep discounts on what I buy, especially if I tell them I'm buying it to breed for them.
Yep.
And they will give me. They give me sometimes, most of the time, at least half of what they're selling the fish for. I got
Yeah.
$10 for the red hump geo it took back the other day.
Well, and that's
So,
the thing. And here's the other thing. I this stuff is not stuff that I necessarily have learned on my own. I
right.
know a lot of people like to shit on Aquarium Co-op and Corey,
Yeah.
but the reality is he shares a lot of valuable information.
Yeah.
If you watch his whole series on breeding for profit, it's amazing how a lot of this stuff that you and I are talking about is stuff precisely that he talks about is creating those relationships. Now, it's like anything, it's like any other relationship. It's not going to happen overnight.
No.
You got to create trust. You got to create a rapport with somebody to the point where it's like, okay, yeah, I feel comfortable with you now. Let's take it to the next step. You're not going to go in there and immediately say, hey, give me some discus. I want to breed some discus. You'll eventually might be able to work up your way to doing something like that.
Right.
But it starts off with you being a consistent person, following through on what it is you're promising for them, and those are, it's like any good relationship. This is a give and take that's going to take place, but that's something that you have to develop,
Right.
and it takes time. It takes time to do that.
Yeah, I started like before I even thought about selling at the LFS. Well, before I had they had started really breeding. Didn't even know I had an LFS here. I didn't know anything about it. I just was going to Petco because first of all I don't shop at PetSmart, but that's because anyway that's a totally different story. They're prejudiced against pit bulls and stuff. So, but so I don't shop there at all if I can help it. But Petco, I don't like shopping at either, especially now that I know I've got an LFS. And when I would go in there, so I started going in there all the time. And I would talk to the guys at the fish store. I would ask them questions. I would make suggestions. I would ask about what to buy for this or what for that. Before I even ever started asking them about if they were interested in working with a local breeder. Because at the time I wasn't a breeder, but I was in there all the time and talking to them and stuff. And I built a relationship with them. That way, when I actually did say, hey, do you guys buy fish from local people? It was actually instead of like, I had actually before had talked to one of the other guys I didn't really talk to very much. And I made mention of having extra Corey's, I think it was. Yeah, it had to have been Corey's. And he said, and he goes, well, it just kind of depends. He kind of seemed to hem and haw around if you didn't really like the idea. But then when I had been in there for a while and I was like, well, somebody did say you worked with local breeders. He's like, well, yeah. He said, if you've just got some surrenders, we'll take them. He said, but we can't. He said, how did he put it? He said, but we're not looking to keep taking somebody's surrenders.
Yeah.
And he said, I said, no, I'm trying to start breeding projects. I'm trying to actually purposely breed. And I want to know if there's a market for that kind of thing. And that's when we started talking. He's like, yeah, I'll take this and da 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 da. Now I go in there and I'm like, okay, what do you guys want on your shelves? I want a new breeding project. So help me help you. And
Yeah.
they give me a decent trio or pair, not give it to me, but sell me a
Yeah.
decent trio or pair for really super cheap. And then I make the deal that they get first shot at the fry or juvie. So, and it helped a lot. But like I said, like you said, I had to build a rapport. I had
Yep.
to, but now they talk smack to me every time I come in, or if I call, they ask me what the hell do I
Yeah,
want.
but that's because you're part of the family now. It's like if well, that's the way I always take it when people joke
Yeah,
around with me, and
yeah.
I don't get offended. That's to
So,
me. I grew up in an environment where if we talk shit to you, it's because we
yeah.
really appreciated you. That was the way of showing affection.
I tell people that mean is my love language. If I'm polite to you and I don't give you shit somehow, then I'm either not comfortable around you or I don't like you and I'm just being a grown up. I'm trying not to be a jerk. That's all it
Yeah,
is.
that's what it
So,
was growing up, and then being in the military. That's just
oh yeah,
you just kind of you just that's just So
take it.
to me that if somebody's being standoffish with me, I'm starting to get self conscious and think, oh,
Right.
they don't like me.
Oh God, what did I do?
But
What did I do? Yeah, same way. But yeah, that was and I'm not like I don't. Okay, first of all, let me say this without sounding like I'm being like horrible. I don't really I don't really follow Corey very much. I do watch some of his videos and I like him. He seems decent, down to earth, and he knows what he's talking about. But like, I know people that will buy his products just because they say Aquarium Co-op on them, and I'm like, I can buy that same thing off of Amazon for half the price, probably from the same manufacturer. So it's
yeah,
like, I think it's good because he always has good quality products and everything. But at the same time, I can't afford to spend extra money for the label.
yeah.
So I have to go with the cheaper versions usually.
Well,
But
and here's the thing though, what I was getting at, whether you like their products or not, that's not even the point that I was trying to make. The
yeah,
point is he's willing to share valuable information, insight from the business as to how you can potentially be a participant in that market. And that's the stuff that I really appreciated, because who else do you know that is willing to kind of give you a guideline as to how to
right,
establish these relationships, how to go about addressing these businesses so that you become a little bit more appealing to them, that they want to do business with you.
right. Yeah,
Um,
that's what I was about to say. I was like, I'm not really big on his products because I can't afford them, but he has a lot of good information and he shares like he doesn't keep it close to his chest, he shares and he tells people. So that's why, I'm not a big aquarium co-op diehard fan or nothing, but I like his information. He's got good information. So I watch his videos and stuff. So but I
yeah,
mean it has nothing, like you were saying, it has nothing to do with his product. But his
yeah.
products are good. I mean, he always picks out good products, but which helps
Well,
you know that he knows what he's doing. But you know, I'm more
and
for the information.
the other thing is because, and I know, again, I'm not advocating for the guy.
Right.
I'm not a diehard aquarium. I'm kind of like you. A lot of the products that they sell are either products that I'm no longer using anymore because I figured out I don't need them, or there's exactly the knockoff product, because that's the problem when you deal with China.
Yeah.
When you deal with
Everybody's got
China,
it.
you're gonna create a product that is unique, and within
Yeah.
months they're gonna have the knockoff of it, and you're gonna
Yeah.
be able to save yourself some money. Now, is that kind of shitty because I'm not supporting them? It is what it is,
Yeah.
It is what it is. Depending if you want to spend your money on it, fine, go
Yeah.
ahead.
If you
If you
like that
try to,
label, go for it, dude.
yeah,
Don't get off on that. I got it. It don't hurt my feelings any.
yeah,
Your money,
but
do what you want.
what I do, my admiration for him is the fact that he's willing to share his knowledge.
Yeah, that's what I was long-winded trying to say too.
Not too many people are willing to be open about how to help you become successful as a hobbyist,
Right.
and stay and potentially make it a little revenue income
Right.
off the hobby. That's the part where I tip my hat to him for sharing that knowledge, because it could be very easily for somebody like him to say, "I will figure it out. It took me this
Yeah.
many years to figure it out. You figure it out."
Right.
Nobody came to me and gave me the keys to success.
Right.
I had to figure that stuff out. So that's where I kind of like, okay, I can appreciate what he has done for the hobby, because I have taken some of his information, have applied it to what I am doing, and
Yeah.
have had some success. So I can hate on somebody for helping me out to become successful.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, he, like I said, his information's been good. I don't really know anything that he said or that I've learned from him that I don't agree with now. I mean, again, I'm not a diehard follower, so there might have been some things
Yeah.
I disagree with. Actually, I think there was one thing, and I was his forums on Facebook, or his groups on Facebook. They are diehards. Like,
Yeah,
oh
that's
my goodness.
you start getting into those forums, Discord things. You got to be careful,
Yeah,
because
I
that's
made
not
fun.
them. That's not them necessarily. Like, you go to Father Fish. Oh my God.
The same thing,
It is one of those things where it's like, what am I stepping into? Because
right?
if you don't follow to the letter, everything, you get crucified in these places.
Yes, I was,
But that doesn't mean that the information that they are necessarily giving out couldn't be useful. But
right,
again, it's one of those things where not everything that everybody tells you is going to necessarily be right,
right,
correct, or work for you. There's a lot of factors that are varied into it, but they're at the core of the information. There might be some stuff that might be applicable to what you're doing. So
right,
it's your responsibility as a hobbyist to be able to take that information and figure out what of that information that was provided can be applied to what you're doing.
right.
And the only way you're going to know is if you try it. If you
Yep,
try it, you're either going to succeed or you're going to fail. If you fail, you're going to try to figure out what happened that caused you to fail.
we're gonna learn a
And you
lesson.
might find out what it was, correct that, and adapt it so that you can continue to have success.
Yep,
And but that's just what this, because I can tell you, to set this up, you have to do A, B, C, and D. And you can go and take and do exactly what I said about A, B, C, and D and not have the same outcome, because
right,
there's a lot of varying factors that are going to take place. What
right,
maybe I live in an area where my water is really hard and has a lot of minerals. You might live in an area where the water is really soft and you have to add minerals to your water.
right,
So it's not the same. We're not going to have the same results.
right,
So, but it doesn't mean that the information that I gave you doesn't necessarily is bad information. It's just you
right.
got to take whatever worked from what I was telling you and adapt it to what you're doing.
Yep,
And that's with everything, whether it's aquariums, plants, a
yep,
lot of those stuff. Even with people that are, if you're like the type of person who likes to watch self-improvement stuff,
yeah,
not everything that person is saying is going to be able to be directly take it and apply to yourself and be able to achieve the same things. But there might be some pieces of information where you're going to be able to build upon and be able to go, oh, okay, I can kind of relate to what they're talking about and be able to be successful.
right, exactly. It's a matter of customization. You got to
Hmm.
take it and customize it to your own needs and the things you need. Um, okay, let's see. There was another question I had, and I totally forgot what it was.
I
Told
know.
you I was going to do that.
I talk a lot.
No, it's just like the whole ADHD brain thing. I had 10 different ideas that I couldn't grab onto. You said you get a lot of stuff from nature, and I do too. What do you do, like, to prepare it to put in your tank? You just rinse it off, toss it in, you boil it, you blah blah blah. What do you do?
I used to rinse it off. I'm gonna be honest with you. I just throw it in there now. As a matter of fact, I used to wash out. Okay, what are some of the typical things that I'll collect? I live in the desert.
Yeah,
And out here, I don't know. We have areas that are called washes.
yeah,
And the reason it's called the wash, because usually ends up being like a low point in the landscape,
yeah,
where if it rains, when it happens to rain, the water will migrate to these low points, and there'll be like a little creek as long as it's raining, and until the rain stops and the water just kind of flows wherever it's going.
right,
Well, in these washes, you get accumulation of driftwood. That's the true meaning of driftwood. Anything that's falling off of the carrizo bushes or the mesquite trees or
yeah,
anything that's out here in nature, big enough storm is going to work its way into these little what would be normally rivers or creeks if
Right.
they're constantly running water, and they'll accumulate there. So I can go and collect fallen branches. Shoya wood is one of the things that we can find out here because it's the skeletal remains of a cactus.
Right.
And then we have some other shrubs. We don't have manzanita wood because we're too low, but we do have carrizo bush, which I guess they have a high oil content or whatever. But after they've been baking in the desert sun for a long time, they dry out.
Yeah.
So I've taken those and put them in right back here. That aquarium has them. So I would go collect driftwood. I go collect boulders, rocks, and I get substrate.
Yeah.
And I remember in the beginning, I would bring like buckets full of sand and gravel, and I would spend hours washing it out and trying to do all this to the point where I said, you know what, this is crazy. Why am I doing this? So one day I decided I'm just going to dump it in the aquarium. I don't have to worry about finding any chemicals or pesticides, herbicides, anything like that, because I don't know of anybody that's spraying the desert for
Right.
for any of these invasive weeds or anything like that. So
Invasive weeds in the desert.
yeah, so well, there are some, but it's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not trying to kill dandelions or all this other stuff, crabgrass or any stuff you would find like in the parks or stuff like that. But it got to the point where it's like, all right, well, what happens? Why can't I just put it in the aquarium? What's going to happen?
Right.
A lot of the stuff you're not going to find out unless you try it. And but you also have to be prepared of the consequences if something negative happens. So I would set up a new tank. I would put that stuff in there, and I would see what happens. Nothing happened, so I did it again, and I did it again, and I did it again, and to the point now where it's like I don't even think about it. I'll just bring it in. Yeah, the water will be cloudy. Give it a few days; it'll settle down. Yep. Make a water change if that's really what you want to do, and eventually you're gonna get to the point where you're trying to achieve. That's the other thing. With patience, you can accomplish a lot.
Yeah.
If if you just let it run its course, it's gonna be okay. You're gonna be all right. But again, that's the only stuff that you figure out the longer you do this.
Yeah.
The more time, the more willing you are to try to do stuff that's out of the norm.
Right.
So I'm a big advocate of encouraging people to try stuff. Don't automatically assume what somebody says to be gospel.
Yeah.
Go try it and see what happens.
Right.
But be prepared to react if something negative is happening.
Right.
Be prepared. Have the basic knowledge to know, okay, that tank is crashing. What do I need to do to fix that? If you understand those principles, then experiment. That's the only way you're going to learn what is true and what isn't. And that's what I've done over the course of the time that I've been back in the hobby is I'm like, well, why can't you keep goldfish with guppies? Why? What's going to happen? And, or the hard one that I learned was, you can't keep cories with goldfish. Well, I was successfully to do it until the point where they were able to fit them in their mouths. And then one day I come in and one of them's got the spines of the cories, stuck in them. And I'm thinking, I lost this goldfish. So, basically I ended up sacrificing that cory to get him out of his mouth. And I threw that goldfish in a bucket because I didn't have the heart to dispose of them. Come back 2 or 3 days later and that goldfish is doing fine. So back he goes in the main tank. But I learned at that point, you don't want to keep cories with goldfish because goldfish, anything they can fit in their mouth, they'll end up siphoning in if it doesn't get away.
Yeah, that is one thing I learned. Actually, I had cories for the longest time before I knew about the spike. Like I didn't even know they had them until one day I was like, I think a friend of mine had ordered some, or I was going to ship some or something, and somebody was like, just be careful and use thick bags because they can pop the bag with their spines. I'm like, oh, are you talking about? And they explained it to me. I went and looked it up and I did some research on it. And I was like, holy hell. I was like, that's crazy. And then I had a bag pop one day when I was on the way to take them up to the, I was selling one to somebody and they walked out the door with them 2 minutes later, they were running back to the door. The bag popped. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. I saw the little spine sticking out the side of his face. I was like, yeah, I know what happened. I double bagged that heifer and just put it back. She come in like this with the bag and a little puddle of water in her hand. And she was like, I need a bag.
Yeah, but it's just again, that's not stuff you kind of pick up as the longer you're doing this, you learn how to do things and not. The one thing that I've been very fortunate that hasn't happened to me, but I hear that if you stress the fish, especially cories, if you stress them too much before you bag them, they'll release a toxin and they'll wipe out the entire bag.
Yeah, that's definitely a Corey thing. Yeah.
Yeah. But I've been very fortunate not to do that. But I don't know if it's a matter of a condition or what causes it. But I've seen where people that do unboxings will bring out an entire bag and the whole thing is wiped out. And apparently that's a real thing where cories will release if they get too stressed out or nervous, they'll release the toxin. And I don't know if it's all cories either. I don't know if all species do it.
I don't know if it's all of them or not, but I know some of them are worse than others. Like sturbites are supposed to be the worst about it, I think. I think it was sturbites that I read that was the worst at it. Anyway, it has the most potent or releases the most toxin or whatever, or is more likely to maybe. But whatever I read, it was like they were the top. They were number one for being the worst. So, but yeah, I've never had that problem either. And matter of fact, one of the times when I shipped some cories to a lady, she kind of got a little pissy at me. She was like, "Well, I wanted them bagged separately." I was like, "Then you should have mentioned that, and I wouldn't have charged you $10 for shipping."
Yeah.
Or 15, something like that. And she said, well, they can, if they get too stressed, they can release toxin and da da da. I thought she was full of it. So I looked it up and, she was right. But then I was like, there's no way. Wholesalers do not individually pack each Cory and send it to the store. They don't ship like that. So it's got to be a way, And so I just realized that just adding plenty of water in there, so that way if there's any toxin reduced, it's diluted, it's less likely to kill everybody, and put fewer in each bag and make sure they have plenty of room to get around. So, I mean, those three things can mitigate a lot of that mess. So.
Yeah, but that's all stuff you're going to learn as you do it. It's not something that you're going to come into and immediately figuring out.
No.
I'm still up in the air. I like the idea of individually bagging fish.
Yeah.
Is it convenient? I don't know. It depends. If you're only doing 5 or 6, you could probably get away with doing it. But if you're trying to do 50, 100 species of that fish, then, it complicates things, not so much in you doing it, but it's how you're going to ship them. Because now you got a lot more volume of water that you got to ship. So, but if the customer is willing to pay for it, I guess why not? Because that's what Dan Fish does. And that's the reason why his fish cost as much as they do. I mean, it's a lot of it has to do with, the expense of getting it to you.
Yep. That and the quarantining and stuff he does. Yep. So yeah, and I would love to buy from Dan. I really would. Because I know that if I did, I could plop that fish right in my tank and I wouldn't have to worry about anything and I'd be good. But
here's the thing though. You can, again, by the relationships you develop. You were talking earlier about fish clubs. If you're lucky enough to have a fish club in your area and you really want to do this, become a part of that community.
Yep.
And the reason I say that is because you're going to learn through your interactions with these people who are the people that are legitimately just as good as Dan or better that are keeping fish, and you're going to be able to, with all confidence, be able to buy from them and do what you were talking about, just the plop and drop into your aquarium.
Right.
But there's always, you're always running a risk when you do that. That's something I have the luxury of having so many aquariums that usually where I put new fish in becomes not only their quarantine, but the permanent tank.
Right.
So it doesn't really matter to me. But once they've been in there for a month, if I want to take some of those fish and do a community tank, then I have no problems. I just go and scoop them out of there and put them in wherever it is that I want them. But yeah, it's just, again, but this is all stuff you're going to learn as your experience grows.
Unless you're lucky enough to become part of the fish fam or the club or whatever, you can find somebody that can help talk through things and that, you know, can say, I've done this and this and this is what I've done. So if you do this, do it this way, or give you options so that way you don't have to make the same mistakes somebody else has made. You know? So I
Yeah.
mean, you can learn from people like that, but you got to be careful, like you said, because not everybody's word is gold. So you have to be careful and know that whoever you're getting that information from is actually trustworthy and not just full of it and got lucky so far. You know,
Well,
because I
not only
mean,
that, trust your gut.
yeah,
Trust your gut instincts. You know,
it
that's
doesn't sound right. It probably isn't.
yeah. You know, and again, if you don't have a lot of experience and you're trying to figure it out, well, research multiple sources. Uh,
Exactly.
and if you start seeing a commonality in the information, then more than likely it's legitimate information.
Right.
But sometimes, and that really falls on us. And that's the other problem. Recognize when it's really something because it's
Right.
your fault. Don't try to pass it off to somebody else because sometimes this perfect example. The whole thing on water changes, should you do them? Should you not do them? Uh,
Right.
you know, it's one of those things where if you're don't want to be doing water changes, you're going to immediately want to believe somebody that says, "Oh, don't do water changes. You don't have to do it." But it's a lot more complicated than that because there's a lot of factors that go into being able to pull that off.
Right.
You know, there's it's bio load. You know, how much stuff. You know, how many. You know, it's what's your water quality? How
Yeah.
big of a top off are you doing? How often are you doing these top offs? How many minerals do you have? Because if your water is relatively soft and the water evaporates, then whatever few minerals were in there are just going to accumulate. It's going to take you forever to reach a point where it becomes bad for you. But if you live in a high nutrient environment area in the water, well, maybe after a couple of times of topping off, you've already exceeded the limit
Right.
that it can hold, and it can become toxic. So it's just there's a lot of stuff where you can hear it, you can try it out. The only way you're going to find out what works for you is you have to try it out. You
Right.
have to be willing to try it out, but also be understanding that if something starts going wrong, that you're going to be able to rectify it.
Right. Be
Have that
prepared.
experience. Have that experience to know. Oh, all of a sudden, all these fish are stressed out and they have ick. Okay, well, how do you fix it? Do you know that? Do you are you comfortable dealing with ick in your aquarium? If you are, then you know
Go for it.
try it out. And if it's you start seeing some signs of behavior that's erratic, then you know what you're doing is wrong, and then go back
Correct.
to what it is you already know works. But again, and that's the other thing that I used to think when people would say, "Oh, I can kind of tell what's going on in the tanks by looking at the behavior of my fish."
Yeah.
I just think you're full of it. What do you mean? The fish talk to you? Well, they don't verbally talk to you, but the more time you spend with the fish that you keep, you can distinguish what's normal behavior, well, what's erratic behavior, you
Right.
know, and but that only comes with time of you interacting with your aquariums or
Yeah.
your aquarium. And but that's why now I come to where I can come in here, I can do a quick walk around and see, okay, everything's okay. I don't
Yeah.
have anything that's going on that's concerning for me. Now, if I see something that is problematic, then I'll do myself. I'll do a water change to see, and then I'll test to see what else is going on, if there's something else, or I'll start looking for signs of either illness or something.
Yeah.
Um, but again, the only reason I can do that because people ask me how often do you test your water. I don't test my water, and it used to be that I would sometimes test it if I saw something that was going on wrong, but it's got to the point now where if something's going on wrong, more than likely it's because the water is bad.
Bad
So,
water quality.
so
Yeah.
as soon as I do a water change,
Water.
or yeah, like Brad said, I'll take my little sipping cup, dip it in there, and take a sip, and and figure out what it tastes like. If it's soft, then it's bad. But no, it's just those are things that as you become an experienced hobbyist, you start picking up on cues that'll
Right.
tell you something's wrong. Smell is a big one. If you come in and
Yeah.
it smells bad, something bad is happening, because a established healthy aquarium is not going to emit any odors. It's
Not
odorless.
like that.
Yeah. So,
So,
but
yeah,
this,
that one of the first things I usually do. I'm the opposite. You don't test. I obsessively test, but that's my anxiety thing going. Um, if I see something wrong, I can tell by looking, like you said, looking at my fish of how they're acting or the water, if it looks a little cloudy or something like that. I'm like, oh, maybe I should grab my test kit. And so I test and then, go from there to look at it. But again, like you were saying, it's a matter of experience and learning from it. So, and learning from what you know, what you've done, and your fish themselves. Because, each type of fish, even if they don't have their own personality, they've got their own quirks as a whatever species they are. They've got their own behaviors and quirks and stuff depending on the species. And then you got your your water dogs that just have all the personality in the world. And you really kind of have to know your fish, know your tank and stuff like that to really be able to tell like that without doing some uh, legwork, I guess,
yeah,
like the
yeah.
testing and stuff.
Well, to pick up on the cues to what's going on. And
Exactly.
the reason I say that, like for example, you have cories. What's the normal behavior of cories? You're usually in the bottom of the tank. That's where they predominantly spend a lot of their time, is kind of scrummaging through
Yeah.
the sand and stuff like that. If you walk into your fish room and all of a sudden all your cories are up at the surface, something is not right. You're going to go, oh, wait, I need to address that because that's not normal behavior.
Right.
Yeah, they'll swim up and down and they'll go up and grab air and come back down. That is normal behavior.
Right.
But or you come in and a fish that's usually swimming in the water column is all of a sudden just laying on the bottom of your aquarium. That's a cue. Something is not right. So,
Right.
and again, you're only going to learn this from observing your aquariums. You're going to learn what would be a normal reaction to the fish that you're keeping.
Right.
Is it always exactly that? It could be something else. Yeah, but at least it's something that is going to cue you in to go, I need to pay attention. I need to either observe it or I need to do something, but it's something that it's a cue that you got to pick up on and go, okay, yeah, something might be potentially happening here that I need to pay attention to.
Yeah. And you got to watch too. Like you got to actually look at your tanks and your fish and see what's going on, because I cannot tell you. I bought a betta that I apparently didn't look very hard. And I mean, she was in a very dim lit tank, but it came from a trusted source. What I didn't think about was the fact that it literally just got in from shipping, but it had fungus and parasites, and I didn't know it. I didn't see it because I wasn't that observant. I just saw how pretty she was. And I was like, let's take that one home. When I get her home, she's covered in fungus and had parasites. So, and she didn't ended up not making it, but yeah. So if I'd had her in my tank and seen that develop, I'd have been able to and been paying attention. I would have been able to catch it in time, but I didn't, and so I bought a sick fish.
Well, I'm going to tell you, with bettas, I hate bettas because they're the fish that'll scare you the most.
Oh,
What I say by that, you come in and all of a sudden you see it like on its side, it's just like not even moving. And you're going, oh no.
I don't know if you saw it or not, but I have a short showing my old betta Cole. He's a yellow Pikachu betta. There was like a tub of something like one of the old. I made a hut out of a plastic container, and it was sitting where the top. It was kind of curled up top like this, and the water was at the top right here. He had shoved himself underneath that little wedge of water up there and was just laying there. I was like, I thought he was dead. And I go in there and I kind of like poked at him, and he just comes running off there. And then whenever I stopped messing with him, he went right back up on it again. Yeah. I was like, Jesus, you're going to give me a heart attack.
Yeah, bettas are notorious for playing dead.
Yeah,
they're just sleeping or relaxed or whatever it is. But yeah, they're the fish that'll probably scare you the most in your fish room, where you're going, oh no, it passed. I have one that's old. He's got his eyes are all glazed over because he's got cataracts or whatever.
Yeah.
He's just old. And he's the one that I come in here and I go, is this the day where he's no longer with me, or is he? And I'll come in there and I'll slightly just gently try to, and then he takes off. I go, okay, he's just
like, why are you messing with me?
Yeah, but yeah, they're the fish that'll scare you the most. They'll make you more often than not think that they're dead, and they're not really dead. They're just kind of chilling.
My friends that I'm training to jump through hoops and stuff. He scares you to death all the time. He digs pits underneath leaves. Like if the leaf is laying across the sand, he will dig a pit. It's lay underneath that where you can't see him anything but like his nose. And you'll look all over the tank for him, try to figure out where he's at, and all of a sudden he just pops out from under this leaf. And there's a big divot where he had dug himself a hole. And then he
Yeah.
gets mad when you fill it back in. That's the funny part.
Well, it took him a lot of work to do it.
Yeah, he's like, I have to do it again. But yeah, I had never seen such a small fish have such a big personality before until I met Magma, her fish, and then I got Nova, mine. This one, my betas have all had really decent personalities, but these two are just nuts. Like already got them jumping out of the water, for food and stuff like that. It took her like maybe 2 minutes to figure out what I wanted. When I put my finger with the food over the water, she just popped right out. And they got such big personalities, but I don't know what got us on this. Anyway,
no, just fish behavior. Looking at fish and
that's what it was.
Being able to identify what's wrong with them and stuff like that. Yeah. But for the most part, most fish, if you kept them for quite some time, you're gonna be able to tell by just looking at the fish. Okay, this fish is acting normal. What's normal, who knows? But at least it's the regular behavior that your fish have displayed since you had them, and then be able to tell, okay, something is not all right. Why is this fish doing this? But but again, that's all stuff that it's only going to come with time and experience and observation. I mean, what's the point of having fish if you're not going to look at them?
Right. I have got another 10-ish minutes before we have to go. I'm sorry, guys. I forgot to mention this is going to be a short one comparatively. So I'm going to take a minute and look because I haven't been able to keep up with comments very well. Taking a look and see here and see if there's any questions.
So that's why she's going to cut it short.
Oh yeah, Kentucky Derby's on, and I have to go watch it. So okay, let's see. We've got. Let me start at the beginning.
Yeah, you got quite a bit of people.
Oh, I do. Damn. Yep. Uncle Smiley, Asaya, Fish Family, Kristen, my girl, Peter, and there's Uncle Smiley again. Rosa. Aqua Bowls? That sounded vaguely. Anyway. Yeah. And Squishy, Zini. And I get down there eventually. Oh, Jose's here. I think I said hi to these guys already. But I'm not sure. Oh, Chris and Henry. Wow, a lot of people have come in and out, huh?
Yep.
Man, I need to find a better system. I did have a computer and a camera, so I was able to keep up with it on my phone. But my computer, so if anybody wants to donate a computer to me, that would be awesome. I just bought it at the end of the year last year and paid $700 for the damn thing because it said it had a 1-year protection against accidents and stuff like that. Well, now I can't get them to honor the stupid 1-year accidental protection thing, and they're saying it has water damage. So they want me to pay almost $500 for a $700 computer to fix it. I'm like, no. So yeah, so I've got to figure that out. But I used to be able to do both and keep up with it. Oh, hey Coro, I didn't see you. And Peter, I think I said hi to him. Prodigal, hello. I feel so bad whenever I don't say hi to everybody like I'm supposed to. Jose and Jeff. Dude, I did a live with him the other night. I think I'm supposed to do one with him tomorrow night too. But I had a lot of fun. Me, him, and Jason 5-Star Beta was on there, and we had a lot of fun. We just talked. I don't even know half the stuff we talked about, but it was hilarious. It was fun. We had a lot of fun. I think I'm gonna do it again.
Yeah, I never know what I'm talking about. I just talk.
Yeah, right. That's why I tell people I never know what's coming out of my mouth until I'll know when you know. You hear it at the same time I do. So, hello, Brainton and his bountiful booty. I have to give him so much crap over that. I don't know why. It just hooked me. I have to. And Mel the Magnificent is here. Well, she was. I don't know if she's still here.
Yeah, she's still here. She just posted something at the end.
Oh, did she? Yeah. I can't keep up with anything. Oh, Miss Laura is here. Hello, Laura. Trying to be all nice to everybody.
I'll tell you what, you do a much better job than I do. I'm horrible at trying to keep up with the chat.
Well, I'm going back through the whole thing from the very beginning. That's
yeah. I I'll get sidetracked, especially if I have. Well, most of my live streams, I have somebody on.
Yeah.
But I my attention span is so short that I get sidetracked. It's like the squirrel. You know,
Oh, I gotta tell you a story real quick about that as soon as I get done this. Aquarium Delirium is here. I'm almost done, I think. Almost done. Linda. Hello, Linda. And I think I'm almost done. Oh, wait, was that Melvin? That's Melvin. I'm keep missing people.
yeah. Stephen P was in here or is here. Christine.
Yuyo.
Yeah, Yuyo.
Laura.
Yeah,
I think that's it. Brandon. That's all that's talking so far that I can see, unless I'm like farther up than I think I am. Oh, Steven's here. Stephen P. Jose already said hi to Jose. You're not worth saying hi to twice. No, I'm just kidding. Totally kidding. Love you, Jose. I think that's it. Have I missed anyone? I don't think so. Yep, I'm good. Okay, so when Anita was before she was in kindergarten, we had suspected she had ADHD. I mean, she just it was to me there was no mistaking the fact that she had ADHD. But of course, her not even being in school, not being 6 or 5 or 6, they didn't really want to diagnose her, which I was okay with because I didn't want her on medication that young anyway. But when she started kindergarten, they went ahead and diagnosed her because she was having difficulty in school. She After her diagnosis, I was having a hard time coming to terms with it because even though I knew it, having that actual label on it was totally different. So I was talking to her. We were sitting on a couch like this, and there was a window behind us at the back of the couch. And she was sitting there talking to me, and I was talking to her. And all of a sudden, she said, "And mom, da 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 da, oh, squirrel!" Like that. I swear to you, no, should you not? I was like, oh god, if there was ever a time, if I ever doubted it, I do not doubt it now. She was literally in the middle of something. Went, woo, squirrel.
Yeah, no, it's. I remember. I guess I've been diagnosed with it since I was a kid, but I know I had it because I used to. I didn't know at the time. I didn't know why, but I got held back in kindergarten to begin with. So because I was just not. I was a wild child. There's no way they could keep my seat in my butt in that seat for more than 15, 20 minutes.
Right.
And what ends up happening is, I guess, and we were talking about this earlier, unless there's something that really draws my attention to where I can get really focused on it.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff, like learning your ABCs, learning colors, I was able to learn that so quick that I didn't want to have to do it again. And then I would just, start talking to other kids because I already knew that. But,
Right.
it was just one of those things. But it got to the point where I used to have to get pulled from my regular class. And I used to go sit with this therapist. And I never understood why she was doing this, but I guess that's the way they were addressing it because my mom didn't want to give me the medication, which I greatly appreciate now. But the activities that I would do there, and I used to love going there because all of a sudden she would sit me down and she would give me one activity. It would take me maybe a few minutes to do it. And not even before I was done, she would give me another one. And it could be like a word find, and then it would be like something with blocks, and then it would be another one where I had to read like a little paragraph, but she constantly, like every so often, she would switch it. And what it was is because I guess she understood that my attention span, if it lasted too long on something, I would lose focus.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was part of the therapy to make me be able to focus long enough to be able to stay in the classroom for the day. But I remember for a whole year I was doing this. And I think I even did it part of my first grade year to the point where it got me to the point where I could stay in class for whatever the duration of the course was. But at the time, I didn't know that that's what they were doing with me. But it was one of those things where they're trying to figure out. And I remember after that I would get they would assign like where you had to do. I used to hate it. And that's why my penmanship was always horrible. But you would have to trace the letters. Remember, it was like assignment. Well, I remember the packets that I would get whenever we would do that would be like 10 pages compared to the other kids, because the other kids would get one. But because it got to the point where they would have me do it, and I guess the teachers knew Let me do that until I get bored, and then flip the page, do the one that's below it, do as much as
Right.
I wanted to do that, flip the page. And that's how they managed to keep me, I guess, controlled. where
Busy.
I guess eventually you just kind of start learning that you have to do these things. But I remember my assignments were always different. They were like shorter. I mean, it was still learning the same thing, but it would always be like in a different format because they
Right.
knew that I could only trace the letter A so many times before I just get bored, get tired, and go do something
Right.
new.
Keeping you engaged.
Mhm.
So, okay, I just looked at the time. I need to be going. Any last words that you? Oh, hello, Dr. Ted. Sorry, you just come in at the last moment. And June just waltzing in at the last moment.
I
So,
think
any
she's
last?
been here. She's just
Well,
been
she just said
lurking,
hello. Oh,
lurking.
okay. Well, do you have any last words or any last bits of inspiration or tips, tricks, anything that you want to share
Not
with
about
everybody?
inspiration, but okay. The only thing that I would want to say is is don't be afraid to try things out with your aquariums. If you find something that you want to try out, try it out. Because the only way you're going to learn if it works or doesn't work is going to be through your own experience.
Right, because it's different
Um,
for everyone.
yeah, you just got to try it. Don't be afraid. If you see something that is out of the norms and it's working for somebody, the best way you're going to find out if it really works is if you go out and try it yourself.
Yep,
Just be prepared to correct action if it doesn't work out.
and
That's
be
the only
okay with
thing.
failure.
Yeah, yeah. But see that whole
But
idea of
failure is a
failure is part of the
relative.
learning process.
Yeah,
It's in science. Science is nothing but a series of attempts,
yep,
and it's not necessarily, well, yeah, I guess, yeah, it's a failure, but it's not really a failure because you're good for
right,
unattainable goal that happened. You're going to learn something that you're going to go, okay, well, what about it? What about if instead of doing it A, B, and C, I do it A, B, and E? Well,
right,
is that gonna result in a different outcome? But
right.
that's just, that's you have to do that. You can't be afraid
Nope,
of trying something new and something unconventional because you never know. It could work out.
right. Laura says, "What is the carpet in the tank behind you to your right?"
This one, that is Vallisneria. Again, here's another thing about breaking arms. They always tell you don't put tall plants in the front of the aquarium. I don't care. I was like, why not? What happens? I'll tell you what happens. The fish don't get startled as much. Um,
Yeah,
they interact. Their behavior is totally different because they feel like you can't see them.
right. They feel sheltered. They don't feel exposed.
Yeah.
But
So,
yeah,
but
I
yeah,
put two pieces of Val in my 55 that had been in my other 55. And I had it in there for a year. Two little stems of Val, and they hadn't grown. They hadn't died or anything, but they hadn't grown. They hadn't sent off any runners. I put them in the other 55 that was just sand, and within 2 months, it was all it's covered. It's covered my whole entire tank in that tank. So, which I don't get, but yeah, it's even from tank to tank, things are different. So,
yeah.
but anyway, yes, I've got to run now. Sorry that I had to cut you guys off. I know everybody likes to stick around, but thank you so much for coming. And everybody, thank you guys for coming and putting up with me. So you guys have a great day, okay?
So who's your money on?
Who's my money on? I actually
What's
don't even
yours?
know who's the only one that I know right now is the I want to say the journalism. I can't remember his name, but that's the only one that I really know is even in there. I haven't been keeping up like I should. I just want to watch it.
All right. Well,
So
thank you guys for coming in, and we'll see you guys soon.
exactly. See you guys. It wouldn't end. I tried to hit the end.